Welcome to SFG Top Performance. Today we have our regulars, Jason and Derek. We're going to talk about spring applied chemicals. It's here, so let's talk about what we can do to start off the season correctly.
Yes, we've talked a lot of times in the past about the importance of two-pass chemicals, and I know last fall I mentioned multiple times that was our best yielding, and we didn't have any failures with the two-pass programs. They did very well, and this year it's going to be more important than ever to make sure we're following them and using a good planned pre followed by a good planned post. You know, if we need to plan these because there's going to be chemicals are available, but they're not in overabundance. So if there's a lot of respray and a lot of things, we need to make sure it's planned and not a escape or whatnot. So, you know, if we plan for a good two-pass, we're going to have good results. We're going to have plenty of chemicals to handle that. It's going to be the situations where we plan on a one-pass and, you know, ooh, this chemical isn't available or that chemical isn't available. So,
don't have anything to play clean up with.
Yes. So we need to make sure that we're planning for multiple modes of action. You know, just because it's a two-pass program, if you put, say, Enlist and Outlook on both passes, you're pretty much, you know, that's kind of defeating the purpose of a good planned two-pass. You want to keep it clean from the start, and then, you know, keep spraying a good program to keep your fields clean, kill the weeds, and make sure it's something that's going to work and have more than that one mode of action. Roundup doesn't kill a lot of weeds anymore, so we need to make sure we have the Enlist, the Liberty, which is also another one that may be difficult to come by. So we need to plan accordingly this year, more so than ever before, on our chemical programs.
And Jason, in that vein, aren't the pre-emerge residual products stronger than the post-emerge? I mean, some are stronger than other, obviously, but it's really important that we get that pre-emerge on the pre, and, you know, start with a clean field and not have weeds coming up that we have to go back and rescue. And there's a lot of things we can add to our pre-emerge products already, like Metrobuzin's one off the top of my head that we can add. Our Matador that we use a lot has Metrobuzin in it already, but that's something that can be added, and it's pretty economical to add that, and it adds quite a bit of residual and quite a bit of protection. And really, it seems to me, I don't know if you agree, that all the newer pre-emerge that are coming out, a lot of them are based around Metrobuzin. And yes. Wasn't it more popular? Is it coming back, or it was popular years ago, wasn't it? And then we kind of got into where we were just spraying Roundup, and now we're coming back to it, or how's that?
You know, for when I started in this industry, when we had Diffusion Fluxstar and before the Roundup days, you know, Metrobuzin was very popular. It worked well. And then we started using Roundup that would kill everything. So we didn't have to worry about keeping the field clean because Roundup would clean it up, and it was a no-brainer. You know, it didn't take you and I to go out and look at a field and, hey, it needs this chemical or it needs that chemical. Anybody could go spray Roundup and kill it, and them days are gone. You know, so Metrobuzin was one of the chemicals that was very effective at that point, and it still is. We didn't overuse it because we stopped using it during the Roundup era, or, you know, we reduced the usage of it. So that is very true that, you know, that's very important to get a product like that, our multiple modes of good action out there.
Sure.
You know, if we have a, you know, you mentioned Matador S. It's got 4 good modes of action especially if we had some 2,4-D to kill the broadleaves that are up. We have an extremely good pre-program that has to be on before the beans are there. You know, start clean, keep it clean, and we're going to have good yields. So that's where we need to continue with these chemicals. And another, you know, we talk about supply shortages and pricing and whatnot. And another issue I run into all the time in the last, you know, all winter long, we've heard nitrogen is expensive. And, you know, your P and your K, it's by the time it gets in season, you better have it on, or you're probably not going to get, you know, it absorbed by the plants and whatnot. But your nitrogen is something you can always add side dress. But so, you know, if we have a lot of customers that are going to put a lower rate of nitrogen down to start with, they come in and do this tissue sample. And with this tissue sample at V5, it'll tell you where your plant's at in nitrogen and how it's taking it up and where we're at. And then we can use some other information, and we can get, you know, a good nitrogen recommendation that I know you've done a lot of work with them, Derek. And
yeah, and the biggest thing is what we're trying to do is we don't just want to say, oh, well, let's cheapen up the program, put on less nitrogen, but we can just really make it more efficient. There's no doubt that whenever you put nitrogen on before the season, you're going to lose some in the big rains, that sort of thing. So if we put it on in season, we're more apt to be able to use all that. You know, the corn's taking up the most nitrogen from, I call knee high to shoulder high corn, that rapid growth stage. So if we put as much as we can on right before then, it's a lot more or better chance of being used, and we might be able to get away with, instead of putting 160, 170 pounds of nitrogen, we might be able to put 150 pounds if we split apply it. Like you said, we don't just want to put on less at the beginning of the season, because then you're setting yourself up for you'll be behind if the crop conditions are good. So we want to make sure we grow a crop, and if we need to skinny up costs a little bit, if we need to get more efficient, we can do that with an in-season application.
Yep. And also when we do this tissue sample, there's some other things we can add. We have a product called AMS. We can add some sulfur with the nitrogen, and that's a great way. If your tissue sample shows you're low on sulfur, throw some AMS in there, and you'll bump that, and it also makes that corn look pretty. It turns dark green and it looks beautiful. It might not always help the yield as much as it looks like it is, but you'll have the prettiest field in the country. So that's one little thing with the tissue sample. We can see where we're at, and we can add a microsync. We can add other micronutrients, any of them we can add to that to that top dress urea. And we can also add some P&K. We tried a couple bean fields last year with it, and it did extremely well. So there's a lot of things that we can do with our in-season pass. So if we do skimp on the nitrogen in the front side, we need to make sure that we're following up on the back side. And especially if you're using Supergrow and products like that, we need to make sure that we're following up with a nitrogen source other than just Supergrow. And this is a great way to do it. You can check where you're at and see what we need. We shouldn't need the sulfur with this, so AMS isn't an issue, but you might need some microsync, you might need some boron or some zinc or some other products that are readily available. And we can also add some P&K if it has showed some responses. So
and we see more people out in the countryside putting P&K on in season, and like you said, that P&K might not get broken down this season to be able to use, but if you put that in your rotation, you can. And you do that every year. I mean, it'll be just like spreading it in the fall, that sort of thing. The biggest thing is we do see some crop response out of that, especially with potash, and it makes me nervous anytime we're burning leaves, that sort of thing. I haven't seen any disasters, but there's more people around doing that, which kind of surprised me over the last couple years. But
so if you are going to skimp with these products and try to cut back on nitrogen and P&K, make sure we're doing some tissue sampling and some sampling to make sure that we're not causing a crop failure, and make sure we're doing something to build our yields again, and just to double check ourselves. Even if we cut a little bit, we followed soil samples and we did everything we needed by the soil sample, let's just check it and make sure we're where we need to be, and then we can always add a rescue nitrogen, or even if it's a planned nitrogen, it'll help us a little bit more with the amount we're going to put on and whatnot. So there's just a couple quick things that we can do, with the economy the way it is, and everybody's a little fearful of pricing and stuff. But don't cut costs completely. Make sure you're still trying to grow a crop, because expenses are high, but we need the yield to pay for everything we've already done. So it's we don't want to cut anything and lose the potential that's out there. And along with the potential and things, Derek, you've been at a lot of seed meetings, and what have you learned about the new seed that's coming out, and what's the potential there?
Yeah, so last week I sat in on the DeKalb Southeast Iowa dealer seed meeting for DeKalb Asgrow. Bear put it on, had a bunch of information for us, about half a day workshop, and I just kind of wanted to breeze over kind of the new things that in the seed world that they're coming out with, and it's 2023 is going to be a big year for them. There's a lot of new hybrids, a lot of new varieties, and then there's new technologies coming out, and they are in all areas of it, corn, beans, technology, chemical, that sort of stuff. So it was a pretty broad meeting, but things I'm going to touch on are just the technology that's coming out, in the seed, or technology that's coming out and the technology that they put in the seed. What they're doing coming for 2023, and there'll be a few bags out in 2022, is they're coming out with a Smart Stacks Pro. So Smart Stacks corn isn't really necessarily big in our area, but it's for corn on corn. It's a rootworm trait that the rootworm eats the root and then it dies. So they're coming out with a new one, Smart Stacks Pro, that actually brings in a new technology called RNAi. And what that does is it actually inhibits the DNA replication of a corn rootworm beetle. So it's very, very specific to that corn rootworm, and it gets into the weeds a little bit, but RNA makes protein to grow the beetle, and this inhibits making that protein. So it essentially stops the growth and kills that beetle, but it's extremely, extremely specific. So it doesn't hurt any other bugs. It doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt other things. It's just very, very, very specific, and that's where I think a lot of the new technology is with the gene insertion. It's going to be so targeted to a specific pest that it makes it a lot safer for everything, and it's very, very effective. I mean, they're showing 99.9% effectiveness so far, and like I said, it's not going to be huge in our area, but especially as we head up into northern Iowa, where there's a lot of corn on corn. I mean, those pressures are so high that the Smart Stacks, there's resistance to it. So it's good to see that they're coming out with new stuff that's effective and working. They had a bunch of good side by sides where they had strips out in the field of 20 plus year corn on corn fields, and wind went through, and the Smart Stacks Pro was standing up, and the Smart Stacks wasn't standing up as good. So that tells me that they're even improving on themselves. So they're not just saying they're better than the other guy; they're improving on themselves, which is really good. Another new technology coming from them is called VT4 Pro, and what that is, it's building on to our current VT2. So what it's doing is adding in the Tricepta trait, which we have some Tricepta hybrids. It helps with black cutworms, more broad, Lepidopteran, those are the moths, that sort of thing. Above ground insects. So it helps give more protection to those, and it also brings in this RNAi technology for rootworms, but only one piece of it, you could say. So it'd be kind of like a light pressure corn on corn situation. You wouldn't put this in your heavy pressure. You'd put it in maybe in our area that we're trying to do a year or two of corn on corn, where we'll get some pressure, but not a lot of pressure, just because we don't have a lot of corn on corn in the area. But it's good to have that extra below ground protection when we're doing it. So those are completely coming out. They even say 2024 for that VT4. So they're thinking pretty far out, but it's nice that they're letting us know what's coming down the pipeline. On the soybean side, they kind of gave an update. They're trying to stack on even more traits in the soybean. Right now we have the E3s and Extend Flex that you can spray Enlist Liberty and Roundup, or Dicamba Liberty and Roundup, but they're planning for 2027 to have the HBPD and 2,4-D and Extend Flex in a single bean. So there's going to be a lot of products that we can spray on beans, and we kind of joke that we can spray. There's a lot more stuff we can spray in corn to control stuff, but they're making beans that we're going to be able to do that. And then they even talk about end of the decade, 2030, adding in a PPO. So like those years, maybe Flexstar will come back and we won't be burning beans. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'll let you know in 10 years. But it was kind of neat to see the what's coming down their pipeline here long term. But one thing to kind of bring it back to short term, this is kind of going on the technology side on climate. That's their yield analysis and application, and looking at being able to make decisions on the field. It tracks planting data, yield data, that sort of thing. They are now talking with Ag Leader, so that's something that's really new for this year with planting. They haven't been able to work with Ag Leader technology yet to make it work in their in-cab capabilities to map the field. So that's huge, and that's going to benefit. We have some guys that use Ag Leader, so I've already talked to some of our salesmen about let's go talk to these guys about climate this year. Let's go talk to them and see if we can increase technology out in the field, because it is only going to help. We'll be able to tell areas of the field that are doing poor, and I need to spend money on this field, don't need to spend money on this field. So anytime we can track this information, it's always usable. I know it gets pretty daunting, and there's a lot of information there, and then you get to, well, what do you do with it? But you got to have it first to figure out what we can do with it. Anyway, so it's good that they're taking strides and working with more technologies to bring it all together, I guess. But that was kind of into the weeds overview of what happened at that dealer meeting. New exciting stuff. We won't go into I'll go into hybrids and varieties here maybe next summer when we're talking about new stuff. But that's what we have in the seed world for today.
Plenty.
Exactly.
Well, now that everybody's overwhelmed with some of that information, we'll go back to the reality of getting the actual work done. Work-wise, like I said, the seeds are basically all here. Now it just needs sorted and delivered. Some guys are ready, some guys are still not quite ready. So we're making room for all the seed. Chemicals are still coming in weekly. We've got seed tenders we're going through, toolbars, anhydrous wagons, tender trucks. Sprayers for the most part in good shape. Probably here in another week or two we'll start testing nozzles and all these John Deere sprayers to make sure they're all accurate. Anymore we got many different sets, so it's not just a 5-minute job. Yep, they look good from the machine, but we physically, got to get out and check them nozzle by nozzle. So there's always something. Once you get those machines out, there's always something that needs looked at. The plants, as in the mixed plant, the blend plants are all in good shape. We don't have any major projects lined up that we got to get done before we go to the field. We got some super grow in pretty good shape there last week. We ran some more because the weather allowed. Dry fertilizer was the same way. Like everybody was saying, the prices just keep going, changes every day. So it just don't skimp on it. That's, like you said, that's the key word. Everybody grew a great crop last year. You don't want to sell yourself short this next year. So make sure you take care of it. So. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us this time. We will meet again in 2 weeks.